From the combined newsrooms in Eugene, Roseburg, and Coos, KVAL News at 6 starts now.
Texas Democrats sparking a national debate over redistricting, gerrymandering after the Texas Democrats left the state, while Republicans push for a plan to redraw Texas's congressional map. And we are going to kick this off with a little bit of context provided to what's going on in Texas and really nationally, bringing in Chandler James, assistant professor at the University of Oregon for political science. I could think of no better time for you to come in because this is something that I think, Chandler, is complicated to a lot of people. The word gerrymandering might sort of be foreign to some people. So a little bit, if you could, provide a history of gerrymandering, redistricting. How did it start? Why is it allowed?
So let's start with redistricting first. Redistricting is just a part of the political process that is laid out in the Constitution. The Constitution calls for a census every 10 years and that the maps be redrawn every 10 years. And so it leaves it up to the states to decide when and how they do that. And gerrymandering is a process in which essentially the politicians choose their voters as opposed to voters choosing politicians. And what I mean by that is it's a situation in which the people who are making the rules in terms of laws, but also how elections are unfolded, get to choose what districts are composed of and where. And so when they do this, and when they gerrymander in such a way as to give themselves an advantage through the electoral maps.
And this is something that's happened for a long time, right, in the United States?
Yeah, it's something that dates back to the founding. It's this issue of the people who are getting elected, basically making their own constituencies, is a problem of democracy, right? And so some states have addressed this issue of basically people creating partisan advantage or some advantage for a group by having independent commissions create the voting maps. But not all states do that. Some states allow their state legislatures to make the maps, and these are instances in which there's a real incentive for the legislators to create political maps that advantage them and disadvantage some other groups. In the case of Texas, it's Republicans creating going through an extraordinary process to redistrict to give Republicans advantage in the Congress, which has national implications.
And that's happening in Texas with Republicans who, obviously are the majority in the state legislature in Texas, but it's happened in Democrat-led states as well.
Well, this is something that is a tit for tat in many respects. And so although gerrymandering occurs all over the country, in some sense, scholars posit that in terms of its effect in terms of the distribution of Republicans and Democrats, it only has a small effect because all these different districts and constituencies are using gerrymandering to their advantage. And so in this particular case with Texas, they have threatened or they're attempting to redraw the maps, and this has led states like New York, Illinois, and California to reconsider their maps and redraw them to their advantage in an extraordinary fashion similarly.
It is an interesting time, and I was listening to one of the Democrats who had fled the state. I think they were in Illinois, maybe New York, speaking on it this morning, and they said one of the issues with this is, sure, gerrymandering happens around the country, but it's supposed to happen, as you mentioned, after a census. So, at the start of a decade, essentially. Well, we're right smack dab in the middle of a decade right now.
Right.
Has this happened before where we've seen this sort of redistricting process called for in the middle of a decade?
Yeah, sometimes that happens. There's no constitutional imperative that they happen every 10 years. States can redistrict as they see fit. That's a power accorded to them by the Constitution. It's just extraordinary, out of regular order, and this is what's causing so much consternation among the Democrats.
And you mentioned that then there are these other states. California, Governor Gavin Newsom has mentioned he'll possibly look at calling a special session. New York, Maryland, Illinois have talked about something similar as well to create more seats for Democrats nationally. Is that something we've seen before? Sort of this one state does it, so I'm going to do it, and then back and forth, maybe?
Well, I think that the nationalization of politics and this particular political moment in which there is great animosity between the two parties and an intense desire for some victories on behalf of Democrats who feel like they're shut out of the political process, I think has caused a particular situation in which Democrats feel extraordinarily compelled to do something significant in response to the possibility of Texas creating a couple of more Republican seats and making it that much more difficult for Democrats to retake the House in the upcoming election.
And so what we're following right now, again, to recap, is that Texas Democrats have left the state to avoid a quorum. Essentially, they need to have 2/3, I believe, of the state legislature present in Austin, right, in order to be able to vote on potential redistricting of the maps. And Democrats have left so that they don't have 2/3 of the legislature there. Oregon's had its own history of similar situations, walkouts, of course, going back to 2019. In fact, Governor Brown sent the Oregon State Police to bring back state senators, Republican state senators, because Republicans had walked out. They've walked out multiple times in the last several years, even back in 2023, which led to some of them not allowed to run for re-election. Right. Do you see parallels between those instances in Oregon and what's happening in Texas?
Yeah, I think that there are a lot of parallels. First of all, what you have is a minority party that feels like they have no other option in terms of making their voice heard in terms of the policy debate, using this tool, this political tool, to gain some leverage to try to exact concessions against a powerful majority. In both cases, big majorities with the backing of allied governors could pass easily the priorities. And so, and then another thing that's interesting to me about Texas and Oregon is the issues in which the legislators who walked out did it so over. And I think they did so over what they believe to be existential or fundamental concerns to their party. With respect to Oregon, in the last one, it was guns, transgender issues, and abortion. With respect to Texas, it's Democrats fighting to maintain Democratic power in Texas and nationwide. And so it's not something that I believe the Republicans in Oregon or the Democrats in Texas did lightly. It's a strategy, a political strategy that they use to try to gain some bargaining power or some room for negotiation to try to influence a political process in which they don't have a lot of influence.
It's a good point. You mentioned in both cases, Oregon and Texas, they were receiving fines for missing out on the legislature. So, nobody likes to have money taken out of their wallet. Last thing is, we don't know exactly how this is going to end up. I believe, about a 2-week session. So if Democrats want to sit out the 2 weeks, but Governor Abbott could call another special session, and how long can they actually stay out of the state? So we're going to see how this all plays out. But I think some of the Democrats have said that have left the state that they're looking for sort of public reaction, awareness to the issue, right? Do these walkouts generally create public outcry or public interest that could actually maybe make the majority party back off, or at the very least push people to get involved or take action, not just the legislators, but the public?
Yeah, so the use of legislative walkouts is a risky strategy that could backfire, but it does have some potential upside. And that is, you can get attention, you gain some bargaining leverage, and you present yourself as fighting for something fundamental. The negative aspect of it is that some people might say, you're not doing your job. I have to go to work every day. How come you, who are making the laws don't feel like you have to go to work. And so some people could look at that behavior and see, even if they agree with the aims, the method being unsavory in some way. And so it does come with some risk. But there have been instances in which this strategy has obtained the minority party some leverage. It doesn't mean that they get everything that they want or they've been asking for, but they have more bargaining power and they get some concessions from the majority. But very few, I don't know if any, walkouts have gotten as much attention as this Texas one. And this Texas walkout has gotten so much attention because it has such serious stakes for the United States. If it is the case that the Republicans get 5 more seats from Texas, that gives them a 5-seat bonus for the upcoming midterms election, and has substantial consequences for the duration of Trump's agenda and the possibility of Democrats having the political clout to respond to him in kind.
I think that's really an important element here is unlike maybe the Oregon walkouts, which were a little more focused on state laws and state issues, this could potentially impact people who don't live in Texas. It would impact people essentially who don't live in Texas. And plus, to have the president so involved, reportedly talking with Governor Abbott, also one of the unique things where the president would be involved in something like this. Really important context.
Can I say one more thing?
Please.
I think the interesting point is just how bare-knuckled our politics have gotten. There's hardly even a veneer of fairness in trying to, or justice in terms of these redistricting. It's just like, this is going to give us an advantage, and we should do it because we have to. And Republicans aren't the only people who do this. Democrats have done this with respect to the filibuster in the Senate, and Republicans have been kind. So this has been a back and forth, a tit for tat between the two parties over the past couple of decades. And I think that this has, it just speaks to the nature of our politics, that it's so much about winning that it doesn't even matter the justification.
Oh, man.
Sometimes.
It seems like we're in an interesting point right now. And like we said, we're still in the middle of this whole situation going on in Texas, so we're not exactly sure how it's going to come to an end, but always really important to have your context. So we thank you, Chandler James, for coming in. Always love having you in. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
And, you know, we're talking about public outcry, how the public's looking at it. So we're asking you at home, do you think state legislators should be allowed to leave to prevent a vote, as we kind of discussed there? In the case of Texas, it's happening right now. It has happened in Oregon. We see right now about 175 people weighing in, majority saying no, they don't support it. 131 no's, 44 yes, but we want to hear from you. Scan the QR code on your screen and let us know how you feel about state legislators leaving the state to avoid quorum or a vote.
Well, temperatures over the last couple of days have generally been in the 70s for the Eugene area. 3 of the last 4 days to be precise. Things are going to be warming up. In fact, we have weather alert days to tell you about. Your full weather forecast is coming up next.